The Cup Adventurers present the Menstrual Cup Veteran.
You're the first person I've spoken to who's like actually been doing it successfully and independently.
I think learning curves are really important to address because you are effectively learning how to use a new tool. And not in the sense of, I've seen people using like a tractor or a hammer or a drill, and I'm holding one now for the first time and trying to use it. It's like, this is a new technology that we did not grow up talking about. It wasn't part of, sex ed, and it wasn't part of when you were taken aside, when they separated the genders, part of body health. We weren't talking about menstrual cups as an option. It wasn't there when we were growing, at least for me. I'm not sure how old you are, but for me it wasn't there.
No, yeah, definitely not.
It's like a friend of a friend was using it, and she was saying that it was great because, it was just so much less wasteful. And she was actually putting her period, I don't know, basically the blood, she was putting in her plants. She said her plants had never been so healthy.
Seriously?
What?
Oh
Yeah. For me, it was like, well, unless you can reach out of the shower and dump it, I'm not gonna walk around the house. Or I don't know, how do you plan this? Anyway, so I've done that a couple of times when I had near the bathroom. I don't know if it's what's contributed to them being really healthy or not. They're just healthy. Anyway, her stories were just like, this is super cool, and less waste and all of this. I'll try it. And also, the big one for me was traveling, because I went backpacking for 3 months in Korea and Japan the summer prior to her exchanging the story with me in the autumn or the winter. And I had packed a tampon box, and I'd taken half the tampons, or a third of the tampons out, and stuffed in as many heavy pads, light pads, and tampons in as I could. But this box, it was for so long, this box took up a third, no, that's not a quarter of my big backpack.
Yeah, sounds about right.
The prospect of traveling with something so small was what? This could change my life. And it did. I would actually say the two biggest things I did in terms of investment, in terms of something that's a bit scary, in terms of being new or expensive or whatever, the two biggest things that changed my life were I started using a menstrual cup, and I got LASIK eye surgery. Because also while traveling, I was carrying contact lenses, and I was carrying fluid, or I had to buy fluid because of limits of fluid, and it was just all the logistics of travel, and I travel a lot. Everything just suddenly was so easy. I didn't the thing I can have more space to pack now is more painkillers. That's it. It's really changed my life. So
that's incredible.
It's a new tool, and you have to learn how to use it. And the other thing about it is it's an incredibly personal tool. So you also have to learn. It's not just about the tool; it's also about you. You have to learn about you and how this tool works for you. And there's all different options out there. So maybe the first one you try isn't the right one, and that needs to also be okay, to embrace, you're going to try this and it might not work, and you might need to try a different brand or a different size. And I think that hurdle could maybe, put some people off, but it's just we don't talk about this stuff.
Yeah, that's why I really felt there's a few, if you look on YouTube, there's a few people talking about it, or there's articles or whatever, but I feel there is no, there's such a depth and breadth of experience and differing experience, and I feel it's really kind of important to have that.
So I started with the Diva Cup because I was living in Canada, and that's the big brand in Canada, and I have stuck with it. It's the one I still use. I'm now on my second cup because it's been 10 years, and after a few years, the discoloration of the cup, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just me actually not unnecessarily and then getting another one. So I'm on my second cup now, and I got the Diva Cup. Comes in 2 sizes. It's basically pre and post childbirth, so I am still pre-childbirth, so that's made things nice and easy.
Okay, that's amazing. It's amazing how painless this has been for you. I am fascinated.
Oh no, there was a learning curve.
There was a learning. Okay, how about you talk about your first time trying it out, and then let's just go into the learning curve in general.
So the first time I tried it out, two things were happening in my life. One was that my mother, who was incredibly conservative, was visiting, and two is I had just started a new relationship with the person who's still my partner today. And like many first-time users of the cup, it got quote-unquote stuck, which is actually, it's not stuck, it's just you haven't learned how to remove it successfully yet.
But your mind tells you it is stuck forever.
Stuck, yeah, and it's very easy. It's very easy to kind of panic and freak out, and then what happens is all of your muscles tense, including the ones around your vagina, and then that makes it all worse. And so, yeah, you kind of like go away and come back. And yeah, so my mother reacted to all of this with, "This is dangerous and you shouldn't be using it." And my partner, who we hadn't been intimate yet, we just started dating, and he was like, he actually came to the bathroom at one point, and he knocked the door. He's like, because I told him what was happening. We already, from the very beginning, had a very frank and open relationship. And he was like, "Do you want me to try and help?" And in my head, I was like, this is not the first time that you see me with my pants on. I refuse, no, I will figure this out. And really what it came down to in terms of figuring it out was the instructions that came with the cup of like the different things you can try, like different methods for putting it in and taking it out. So putting it in, yes, but taking it out, no. And I wound up figuring out my own sort of way, which is an evolution basically of what was on the drawing. So if I were to describe it, it would sound exactly like what you see in drawings and diagrams of how to remove a cup, which is either that you put one leg up, so you kind of have like one knee bent and one leg straight, or you squat. And so that is indeed what I'm doing, but the exact mechanics of the thing are not exactly what I was looking at in the illustration. And it just took a few tries to figure that out, and I would say it was my third period where I felt like confident going in to either put it in or take it out. I wasn't worried anymore. And after I think the third period, I didn't even think about it. So there was a learning curve. There were awkward moments. I had to reassure my mother about something that even I didn't feel very confident about. But yeah, it really, really was 100% worth it.
That's fantastic. That really is. So was there, as part of that learning curve, was there, like, has leakage ever been a problem, or is that automatically a thing?
Yes, leakage has been a problem, and that's on me not putting the cup in properly when I'm in a hurry, because that's also the point of confidence I'm at now, is I'm doing things as carefully as I was before all the time. But it's also once you have like a leak, you're like, okay, like I don't want that to happen again. It's a bit inconvenient. And let me put it in more carefully now. And that is also a problem much more on my heavier days. My first 2 days are usually quite heavy. Yeah, it's on me to know that I need to go and change it and not to delay that and to procrastinate. So, but yeah, it does happen. And I think that it's sort of, again, like knowing your body, like figuring that stuff out, because it's different from when you're on tampons or using a pad. So it's just figuring that stuff out.
So this is one of the things that we've been discussing that I feel like is highly relevant to the topic. Do you know exactly where your cervix is?
No, and I was very curious in the previous episodes of why this was important.
So apparently, this was part of my research journey and trying to figure out why this wasn't working for me. So apparently some people have a shape that is just slightly curved, and it means that the end of the cervix is effectively just slightly off to the side. So if the side of the cup kind of bypasses that rather than going over it, that can be a reason for leakage and slippage and things like that. And if it's like, depending on how it can be up higher or it can be lower, and that can mean that if you have a super long cup and it's quite low, then that doesn't work for you. Or if you have a super short cup and it's up high, that doesn't work either. So it's kind of like some people, it just seems to work automatically. And sometimes it just doesn't, like, something was definitely wrong with that when I was doing it. And part of the issue was like, I tried and I'm still not sure where my sperm exists. Like, I read all the diagrams and I've been to the gyno, I've had a pap smear. Like, it's not like it exists theoretically, but I sure can't find it. And that means that part of that, like, troubleshooting advice that they give you was just not actionable for me.
So I know from previous pap tests that mine is quite far up. They've had to, like, there's a little bit of a moment of like, whoa, like, whoa, I really have to, like, whoa, okay, like, it's not right there.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit farther away than usual, because otherwise there wouldn't be the commentary that I
Right.
So I wonder if that's part of why it's worked.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's also part of why, especially initially, I was having difficulty with the cup. I mean, there are still days now. Especially, I find after I've slept, it really travels up. I wonder if that was part of my difficulty in the early days of oh God, like, it's stuck and it's gone, or not gone, but like I can't get my finger down the side of it to relieve the pressure because it's too far up.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's also part of why it has fundamentally worked, is because there's like, in a way of saying, there's wiggle room for the cup to, like, find its happy spot there.
Yeah.
You could probably start a whole other podcast series for women who went and had any kind of sexual health exam in Japan, because that is also a super unique and funky story. But yeah.
Like, did you just, I mean, to go off topic for a minute, but was it an overall good experience? Because mine was amazing. I went to this all women's clinic and they did a thyroid test, a mammogram, and a pap smear all in one, all female staff. Everybody was super nice. It was actually great experience, which is wild.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds like the dream sexual health clinic. Mine was a super small private practice with some, like, 60-something-year-old man and his one nurse, and I was behind a curtain, and then I had to sit in a chair that was, like, right up against the curtain, and then he pressed a bunch of buttons and the chair moved and my legs, like, went through this divide in the curtain, and then they pulled the curtain close, so I couldn't see below my belly button, basically, and I couldn't see the doctor and he couldn't see me, and then, like, my feet were on these things, and then, like, those went up and, like, moved my feet apart, and I was like, oh, okay. It's very.
So I think that from their perspective, that makes it less embarrassing. But for me, it made it way more embarrassing. Like, it's like, you know, when you make a thing out of it, it gets worse.
Yes,
if it had just been matter of fact, it would have been better.
Yes.
Right. So, okay. So that's about, like, leakage and spotting and that kind of stuff. What about, like, has it ever been a painful or uncomfortable experience getting it in or out?
Yes, getting it in or out, no, that's all been fine. But I had someone mention something as the cup sort of uses become more popular and more women have started talking about it and sharing stories about it. Someone said something which really resonated with me, and especially since they've said it, I think I've noticed it more, which is that sometimes I do believe that the cup makes my cramps worse. And this was what someone had said in terms of they had this discussion with their friends, and this had come up, and that really resonated with me, and because I was like, I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then since then, I'm like, I'm pretty sure, because it's like day 4 now, I shouldn't be having really bad cramps, and it's not quite the same thing, but it's enough the same thing that otherwise I would just think it was a cramp, and I do think it's because the cup pushes up against something, and that could be something as normal as a cyst, which is, you know, not threatening cysts, but the ones that go. But I actually haven't had that conversation in a more formal capacity with any kind of doctor, or since then actually to proactively ask other women. in terms of first-hand discussions, but that is something in terms of pain. Because I don't think cramps could be classified as anything other than pain.
Right. And then how did you, the first time when you had that sort of panic moment that, oh no, it's stuck, which I think everybody has the first time, what was your technique for, like, did you just have to relax, or how did that end up working for you?
Walk away for, like, as in, like, really leave completely. Go and do something else for a while. Like, your mind has to completely forget about it for a bit, so that your body goes into a different modus of being, so that you relax all your muscles, and then it's coming back and trying again. You will find your way, I think, is the best advice I can give to all my fellow vagina bearers with menstrual cycles, is you will find your way of getting it in and getting it out that doesn't hurt, that isn't uncomfortable, that isn't annoying, and that isn't frustrating or panic-inducing. You will. It will come. I do think there is also something really valuable to be said of there is a reason that the market has so many different designs. You know, you might try one that your three best friends are all using, and it might not work for you, and that is okay. And that discussion, I think, needs to be had more, in terms of, I think, starting with sexual health discussions and how we have menstrual cycle discussions, either with our parents or at school in, like, formal education settings. But it's a bit like condoms, you know, like there are so many different kinds of condoms. If the first time that you experience like touching and using a condom in a sex ed context, whether, you know, with family or in school, and they only bring one brand out and one type out, you know, it makes you think, like, well, that's it. That's the only option. When you go to the store to buy your own, you're like, well, that's the only one I've ever seen. That's the only one to buy, and that might be really uncomfortable for you as a male, or for you as a female. And that's not the reality, right? There are so many other options, and that discussion is super important. And so I think it's part of that sexual health education should be, here is a diverse range of menstrual cups. None of them have ever been used, so everyone in the class or everyone, you know, here can grab them and feel them and see that how thick they are, how long they are, how short they are. This one has a really long stem, this one doesn't. Why is that? Let's talk about that. Let's explore that. And so I think, as much as you will find your own way of putting in and taking out the cup, and you will come into better tune with your rhythm of your cycle, because you will really have direct visual access to what is happening when you're having your period. It won't be absorbed by cotton. You will see everything, and you will see how it changes over the course of the day, of however many days your period lasts for. It's the same for the diversity of cups. Try something, and if it doesn't work for you, but like, really try it on. Like, the first day it might not go super smoothly. If it does, fantastic. But if it doesn't, like, try sticking with it. But even if you stick with it, if you're not happy, try something else. It really is worth it. I don't think I could say enough how worth it is to be using a cup versus other products out there, in terms of ease and convenience.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. Have you had it in for, like, sports, a lot of physical activity, all that kind of stuff? I know you said it kind of travels when you sleep. Is it always good during physical activity?
Yeah, I've never had any problems during sports activities, and I've done everything from surfing to horse riding to yoga to running with it, and it's completely fine.
That is fantastic. That's amazing. I love hearing this, because it's such a different experience from everything else that I've heard, in a way. It's
also, I think I've been using the cup for so long, so it will be 10 years this summer. It's been so long that it's very easy to sort of approach it from where my experience stands with it now, where it is so much now it's just habit. in my opinion, this really should be a bigger part of how, I don't know, just a bigger part of sex ed and general health discussions we have with family or within our education systems.
Yeah.
I think that starting use of the cup now for women in their, in terms of my age group, like I'm in my early 30s, but in terms of when I started having these discussions more overtly, it was really in my mid-20s. In my early 20s, this wasn't even on our radar. At that point, just from life experience, I think that we're more familiar with our bodies, because even for me, like when I was growing up, like my mother was very conservative. I wasn't given a tampon; it wasn't an option. And my mom found a cardboard applicator once, like it didn't flush down and it came up, and my mom freaked out and she yelled at me and she's like, "What is this?" Like, I think she thought it was something, I think, sexual or drug related. I don't know. She was furious and really frightened, and I was like, "It's a tampon applicator. It's fine." But I think that if discussions about how we, not even just, it's not about women, I think all genders, we should become more familiar with our bodies and what they're like, and the fact that they're all different, you know. And I think we live in a very like capitalist marketing world where everyone sort of is made out to appear like you're this far off from the standard. You know, we're all comparing ourselves of like, well, my legs are farther off or my arms are farther off from what the standard of perfection should be. But I think having that conversation first on the external part for sure is a bit easier, even though that is obviously a very difficult hurdle to overcome. We still haven't done that. But also on the internal parts of our body, of what it's like, you know, like that they are all different, and we all have different needs, and we were more familiar with that stuff, and it was less taboo from a much earlier age. When it comes to like, and now you're going to have your period, and so like we need to find the right product for you, you know, and like that is a part of like a normal conversation.